Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be doing a short tag. This is a brand new tag. It's called Roadmap of Your Life Book Tag. This is an original tag that was created by Tristan at L-Space-Books, and I was tagged by Tristan. There are only two questions in this tag. The first is, what is a book that reminds you of or takes place in each place that you've lived? This could mean country, state, province, city, town, apartment, house. Just come up with a book that really resonates with you and the time you spent in each place where you've had a mailing address. Okay, so here we go. That's the first question. So I've quite a few books for the different places where I've lived. The first one, associated with the very first place I ever lived, which was for the first 5 years of my life, I have George R.R. Martin's The Game of Thrones. Now, why George R.R. Martin? Well, it turns out that he was also raised in the same city where my life began. We left the city in the early 60s, but from what I've read about George R.R. Martin and what I've heard him speak about, he lived in the same city. This is Bayonne, New Jersey, right across from Manhattan. He was born and raised there, and he went all the way through school and through high school there. And he actually lived in the same neighborhood that my family's home was in. I believe from what I've read, he was just a few blocks away. I don't think anybody in my family knew him. I had family that stayed in the city many more years. I had cousins who would be around his age, maybe a little bit younger, and they don't know him, but we were all in the same place at one time. So when I was 5 years old, my family left the city and we moved out to the suburbs. So I have a couple of books that remind me of the house where I grew up. The first that I'm going to talk about is Judy Blume. This is a new edition of her classic, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Judy Blume grew up about 3 miles from the town that I grew up in. She grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which is a city. I lived in a little town, but just about 3 miles away. So I always associate Judy Blume with the general neighborhood. When I think about growing up in this house in the suburbs, I think of a couple of books that were just important in my early years. And this is a box set that I've shown in a couple of other videos. But this is Tolkien's The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I just have a very, very vivid memory of being in 8th grade and my brother giving me this box set for Christmas. And I just have a vivid memory of him walking into the room with this. So I associate that with the old family house. A couple other books. Very important in my adolescence was my reading of J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. And I'm smiling because Angelia at Read and Reread and I are determined to work this book into as many videos as we possibly can. But this really, really was an important book in my early adolescence and in my later adolescence too. So I associate it with the house I lived in, the neighborhood I hung out in, my best friend's house as well, because she was the one who gave me the book to read. And I also think of Judith Guest's Ordinary People. I just have a vivid memory of reading this book early in high school, not in school, reading it on my own, and then eventually seeing the movie. But that came out a little bit later. I think this was published in 1976. I just associate this. I can see myself where I used to read in my bedroom in the family home. Okay. After high school, I went off to Vermont. I went to college and I went to graduate school in Vermont. So I have several books that I associate with my time in Vermont. One of them is the collected poems, complete and unabridged, the poetry of Robert Frost. Not only did I get this book when I was in college and use this book in a couple of classes, but also my college and my graduate school, they're very closely allied with Robert Frost. Robert Frost had a farmhouse up in Ripton, Vermont, which is actually where Middlebury's English Graduate School is. And the college owns that farmhouse now. And Robert Frost often spoke at the Breadloaf School of English, which is where I went to graduate school. And there are lots of famous pictures of him walking around the campus up in Vermont, and he spoke regularly at Breadloaf and at Middlebury. So Frost is somebody that I associate with my time in Vermont. And another book that I associate with my time in Vermont is written by one of my professors, John Elder, Reading the Mountains of Home. And this is a book about his experiences, his hiking around the mountains close to the college. And he also ties a lot of poetry into this book as well, including the poetry of Robert Frost. In my early 40s, I returned to the town that I grew up in, and so for that reason, I'm bringing up Thornton Wilder's Our Town. Now, this is set in New Hampshire, and this town has Grover's Corners, New Hampshire. This play has nothing at all to do with where I live, but just the idea of growing up in a small town and coming back to that small town, and I'm still living there now. We're very much a suburb of New York, and lots of people who live here work in New York and certainly go into New York a lot. So I feel like New York has to be on my roadmap as well. I don't take advantage as much these days of our proximity to New York, but there was a time in my life when I absolutely did. So for that reason, I thought, again, Catcher in the Rye takes place in New York City over the course of 3 days, but I also thought that I would show Garth Risk Hallberg's City on Fire, which is set in New York City. Okay. Now, I also taught for over 31 years in one suburb of New York City. It's a northern New Jersey suburb. So, any of these books that I'm showing kind of are associated with that place that I spent over 3 decades. And I taught in another place, also a suburb of New York, in New Jersey. So all of these New Jersey, New York books kind of fit for all of these places where I spent, well, for my teaching career, almost 40 years. And then the second question, the only other question in this tag is this. Since a roadmap not only shows you where you've been, but also where you're going, what is a book that reminds you of or takes place in your next destination, or a place you'd like to live in? Now, for that, I have a couple of thoughts. I am planning a trip. In fact, I have a meeting to continue to talk about this trip in just a couple of minutes. I'm going on a trip to Ireland in the fall. That's where my family, or half of my family, originally came from. This is the trip of a lifetime. And before the actual tour begins, because we're going early, we're going to visit the actual town where my grandmother grew up. The house that she grew up in is still standing. We know where the cemetery is, where my great-grandparents and other relatives of my grandmother are buried. So we're going to see those places before the tour begins in Dublin. So for that reason, I just brought out a couple of my Irish books. One of my favorite Irish authors is Claire Keegan. So this is Foster, a book that broke my heart, but that I've given to many, many people as a gift. Book I'm reading right now with Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads and Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. Ulysses, James Joyce. Another memoir, the second memoir in the series. I had talked about the first one several videos ago. This is Nuala O'Fwelon's second part of her memoir, Almost There, The Onward Journey of a Dublin Woman. I thought that was appropriate since I too am almost there. And then, because I'm making this trip with some of my oldest and dearest friends, I also brought out Maeve Binchy's Circle of Friends. And of course, she is an Irish writer, and she wrote about Ireland. That's it. That's the tag. So if you are watching this and this seems interesting to you, I hope that you will consider yourself tagged by me and that you will do this original tag by Tristan. But as always, I am going to name a bunch of people because I would really love to see Tristan's tag spread. So here are some people that I am tagging. Marilyn Maya Mendoza, Angelia at Read and Reread, Gavin at Genre Books, Chris at Chris's Book Corner, James at Quaint and Curious Volumes, Renee at Beyond Books, Ellen Made Book Club, Melinda at A Web of Stories, Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics, Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads, Nikki at My Messy Bookshelf, Joshua at Joshua Crebo Reads, Dee at Through the Pages with Dee, Hannah at Hannah's Books, Nicole at Noteworthy Fiction, Aaron at Aaron Facer, Aaron at Aaron Read a Book, and Alex at Alex Unabridged. Okay, so that's my Tag Tuesday. As always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.